Welcome to the Yahowah blog. I am Craig Wynn. I don't know if you realize this or not, but in all of human history, this is the first occasion where somebody has shared the entire message, everything that needs to be known about Yahowah, his beloved Son, the covenant relationship, the purpose of the invitations to meet, as well as God's timeline, while also repudiating the religious myths that corrupt that path so that it is difficult for people to find and to trust. Never. It didn't happen with Moshe. It didn't happen with Dod. It didn't happen with any of the prophets. It is also interesting to note that Yahowah is actually more vociferous, talking about the negative consequence of errant cultural traditions, religious beliefs, and political platitudes than he is in revealing the way that we are to walk to him. If you were to remove God's criticism of religion and politics and societal customs, the general embitterness there is towards God among his people, from the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, something this thick would grow to about 1/4 its size. Never has anyone pointed out that God is antagonistic towards religion, or that it is the primary theme of his message. You're witness to something that is previously unheralded. No one in human history has taken on the two most popular religions and proven that they are completely without basis, having written 5 volumes that prove that Jesus never existed and that the Christian New Testament was ultimately conceived by Paul, who was demon-possessed, and that there is no basis of truth. It is very little more than a product of identity theft and counterfeit. And that similarly, the Quran is the result of rabbis selling Muhammad Talmud stories, which he twisted to fit his situation. And that Islam would not exist with rabbis not having done so. And that in the 5 volumes of Goddamn Religion, I prove conclusively that Allah is not a god. And that Muhammad not only wasn't a prophet, but he may have been the worst man who ever lived. No one has ever pointed out that both Paul and Muhammad, the architects of the 2 most popular religions in the world, both admitted they were demon-possessed. You are hearing things that no one has ever said before. No one previously has adroitly pointed out and proven that King David of Yisra'el volunteered in his first of 3 lives to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim, that he revealed exactly how his body would die from crucifixion to fulfill Pesach, and how his soul would carry our guilt into Sheol to fulfill Matzah, and wrote about these experiences as the only eyewitness 1,000 years before he endured those torments as a prophet. And then he would come back 400 years after his first life and 600 years before his second of 3 lives. And he told Daniel, as Gabriel, God's most courageous and capable man, exactly what he would achieve, exactly where he would achieve it, and the exact moment that he would do so 600 years in advance of fulfilling that prophecy. And yet, prior to this announcement onto this program, no one had come to the realization that David, the king of Yisra'el, was the one who actually fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Mekodim in 33 CE, and therefore he is our Savior, and therefore there is no possibility that Jesus ever existed. You understand how profound this is, and where we are, what we have discovered, what we're sharing, what we've come to know and understand, and how vital it is to the world, particularly now to Israel's survival? At the same time, there is no one that has shown that Israel's response to the Muslim provocation on 10/7 played right into their hands, with Israel setting itself up for the final Islam versus Israeli war that will lead to the deaths of 2 out of every 3 Jews over the next 8 years. No one else has correctly demonstrated that Donald Trump is the Torahless one, the son of evil that Christians anticipate as the Antichrist. Yes, I know there have been a couple of people based upon Christian lore or who have just looked in the book of Daniel and taking it at face value and said, oh, well, that certainly fits this man and nobody else, but they couldn't prove it. And they couldn't prove it in the context of Yahweh's revelation, pursuant to exactly what's going to happen and when it's going to transpire, and how this relates to the creation of the Islamic state of terror that is about to be imposed on Israel. But I have. You are witness to the most extraordinary set of circumstances and discoveries ever presented to humankind. But the challenges, ladies and gentlemen, are almost unfathomable. So let me ask Rich, did Moshe, who is an extraordinary man, a man of character, did he succeed in getting the children of Yisra'el into the promised land with the right attitude about God?
No, not at all. Not even close.
Not even close, did he?
Nope.
In fact, he gave up many, many times along the way. Sometimes so bad that he told God just to go ahead and kill him. Many of the things he says are just, you just shake your head and say, how could he say that? But what was the reason? Why did Moshe fail? Because he was a good man.
It was the pressure of them being so obnoxious. They didn't support him at all. He was working strictly with Yah, and that was it. But nobody else was paying attention.
It is a combination of those two things. First, Jews from the beginning, even before the Exodus began, in Mitzrayim, when Moshe showed the character to stand up and protect them from death at the hands of an Egyptian taskmaster, they turned on Moshe rather than thank him. And after he and Yahweh freed them from being slaves in Israel, the entire time they bellyached and said they wanted to go back to, Egypt, Mitzrayim. They wanted to go back. They didn't like being with Yahweh. Matter of fact, when Yahweh came down and to tell them, I am God, and I'm the one that is working with Moshe. I chose this man to reveal myself to you, and I am here standing beside him to demonstrate this to you. What did the children of Yisrael say?
Shut up and go away.
To God.
I know.
God.
It's amazing. I can't fathom being present there to see all of that.
Well, yeah, and say that. But okay, when they finally got to the promised land and the spies were allowed into the promised land and they came back, what did they say about it?
They lied and were whining about giants and questioning even being there.
Yes.
Wanted to go back.
They didn't want it.
Yeah.
They did not want it. God's given him this gift. They said, nope, we don't want it. We want to go back to Egypt, to Mitzrayim. And they even went so far as to say, let's stone and kill him. We want a different leader. Let's stone and kill this one. So it was the reason Moshe failed. And he failed. Let's just admit it. Moshe failed. Yahweh failed. Yahweh tried to talk to them. He tried to lead them. He tried to teach them. He failed. Because of Yahweh? No. Because of the audience. Jews wouldn't listen.
Toughest audience on the planet.
They wouldn't listen to God. They wouldn't listen to Moshe. When God fails because of you, you have a problem, Israel. When Moshe, a man of that intellect and character, fails because you wouldn't listen, Israel, because you were belligerent, Israel. Israel, you have a problem. And it's true. Moshe did not have enough support. His brother was counterproductive. His sister was hugely counterproductive. And even in the depths of despair, when Moshe said, God, just kill me. This is impossible. No one can do this job. And the spirit of Yahweh was then shared among 70. Do we have any indication that they were ever of any value to anyone?
Not really.
No, we don't. Nothing. So Moshe, one of the greatest men to have ever walked this earth, in Yahweh's presence, failed.
Sadly, true.
The greatest man who ever lived, who would he be?
Dode.
Smartest man who ever lived.
Dode.
The one man that God said, he is my chosen one. He is my son. I'm anointing him Messiah. I have chosen him to be the king of my people. I am enabling him to be a prophet. He is the most set apart one. Through him, I'm going to create and establish the covenant relationship.
That's exactly what he said.
Did Dode succeed?
No.
Not even close.
Nope. They all turned on him.
Dode's mission was to unite Yisra'el and protect Israel as a united people that had an appreciation for, an admiration for, a respect for Yahweh and for his Torah. And yet what happened? In the middle, his third son, Absalom, rose up against him, and the overwhelming preponderance of Yisraelites sided with Absalom because he filled their little heads with everything they wanted to hear. He tickled their ears. He told them, oh, you're being mistreated, but if I'm king, I'm going to give you this, that, and the other thing. Just the typical political promises, the religious promises. Believe me, man, I'll deliver this to you. And as a result, Dode died. Really sad. So he failed. I love Dode. He's my king. And ultimately, I have ultimate respect for Dode because I know what he did in his second of three lives and how he volunteered to do that and what it costs to do that. And I read and I am inspired by his mizmor and his bravery, his courage, his great love for Yahweh. And so he is my beloved king. But there is no way to assess the conclusion of his life and the state of Israel other than he didn't get it done. King of Israel. Am I the caliber of Dode?
No.
That's absolutely correct. I am not even close. My position with Yahweh, as dear to him as was Dode?
No.
No. How about, do I have the character of Moshe?
Nope.
Nope. All true. Thank you very much. No, I'm just kidding.
I still get the religious have turned all of these stories into this feel-good bullshit.
I know. And they had flaws like the rest of us. But the fact of the matter is, these were the two greatest exemplars in human history, Moshe and Dode. And neither one got the job done. Is the circumstance now with the world Gentiles and with Yisraelites, Yisra'el and Yehudim. Is it any different today than it was for Moshe or Dode?
No, they're still rejecting everything.
Is anybody listening?
Nobody's listening. You got 40 comments on 20,000 posts.
Yeah. Yeah, no one's listening. We are doing something that's extraordinary. No one has ever presented the complete picture of who Yahweh is, what he's offering, what he's asking in return, how the covenant works, how the Moed Mikre enable us to be part of the covenant, what role Dode played in his second of 3 lives, what role he'll play in his 3rd life, how the timeline is all setting up for Yahweh's return with Dode in 2033, which is year 6,000 Yah, how we can base that on what Dode said that he would do to fulfill Chag Matzah in 33 CE. No one has ever done any of these things before. No one has ever explained that there are 3 destinations for human souls, and we choose which one we go to. And it ain't just heaven and hell. No one has ever not only reintroduced the proper pronunciation of Yahweh's name, but validated it, explained it, so that it was certain and understood. So you are listening to things which are extraordinary, along with someone who has successfully repudiated the lies of the 2 most popular religions, so that that gunk is cleared, and that you are now in a position to understand exactly what Father and Son are offering and how you capitalize upon it. Never in the history of humanity has so much been offered to you right now at this time. And yet very few are listening. The job is tough. And my role in this job has changed over the years, so I want you to have some appreciation for what it is I'm trying to achieve on behalf of Yahweh and his beloved son Dode and his people, Yisra'el. I have come to realize and have proven that the 2 most popular religions in the world are both diametrically opposed to Yahweh's teachings and false. There never was a Jesus. Muhammad was among the worst men who ever lived. And subsequently have also proven that Judaism is false, that the rabbis are absolutely full of it, full of themselves, but certainly not full of Yahweh. They don't know God at all. They do not understand the Torah at all. They don't understand the covenant. They don't understand the Moed Mikre. They don't understand Yahweh's name. They don't understand any of it. And yet they manage to continue to hoodwink and fleece and control Jews. After having written some 35 books and posted them at yadayah.com, they're all there available for you to read now. There's additional one that will be posted soon. Excerpts of it are already available on the Facebook page. That will be Yada Yahowah Volume 9. But 3 volumes of an introduction to God, where all of the original text material is resources are explained, and how we came to possess the Dead Sea Scrolls, the grammar and the alphabet of ancient Hebrew, and how it plays into us understanding the message that God communicated. I mean, unique things that have never been shared before. For example, there's no past, present, and future tense in Hebrew. There's only ongoing and limited action in time, and that there are 3 ways to express volition, because choice matters so much to God, with volition expressed in the first, second, and third person, and that the stems that are associated with each of the verbs in Hebrew actually establish a relationship between the subject and the object of the action, because relationships are the most dear thing to God. No one's ever done that for you before. No one's ever gone back to the original text of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the oldest witnesses to God's message, on average 1,500 years older than the oldest Masoretic text. And then scrubbed all of the words of the diacritical markings of the Masoretes so that they were devoid of their religiosity. and then looked at every root of every word to understand its meaning and look at all other words that were similarly written, and actually come to the realization that a huge percentage of Hebrew words are compounds. Mishvat, for example, compound of my, which means we need to ponder the implications of this, and Shaphat, which means to judge, to perceive, to understand. Excuse my phone ringing in my pocket. I'll have to deal with that later. So these are all things that are unique to this, and to come up with a completely different form of amplified translation so that you could look at every single word, know the words that are there in their most generic form, and then you can look them up to verify their meanings for yourself. Never been done before. Or to have somebody write a commentary on what these statements convey, such that it correctly associates them with everything God had to say on this subject, so that you could go for the first time from knowing to understanding. You have all of this now in 35 books, 25,000 pages, all available to you free. And over the last 25 years, we've accumulated that while doing one show a week, or during the Shattering Myths era, I did 6 3-hour shows a week. But something has changed over that time, and it's important that you know it, because if you're a part of this covenant family, I want you to engage accordingly. And if you're not, then you need to know what has changed as you evaluate this material. For the first 5 years that I was involved and principally focused on exposing and condemning Islam with Prophet of Doom, Tea with Terrorist, I answered tens of thousands of emails. Everybody that wrote me, I responded to them. And in the process, I received about, I don't know, I could stop counting it, 4,000 or 5,000 death threats. After a while, I just stopped responding because there was nothing new. And everything that was questioned was already answered in the books. Subsequently, I have rewritten Prophet of Doom as the 5 volumes of Goddamn Religion, all free to at yadayah.com. I wrote Questioning Paul. It was first the Great Galatians Debate, then it was Questioning Paul. It is now Twistianity, 5 volumes. And when I first wrote it, I published it at yadayah.com, and I answered thousands of emails explaining it, and including those people whose life's ambition became to try to exonerate Paul in all manner of confusing format, and yet I dealt with it all. And during the period of these two, and as I began to write Yada Yahowah, particularly as I got the first 5 to 10 volumes of Yada Yahowah series out, the first of those would happen to be Azab, which is now volume 7 or 8 of the series of Yada Yahowah. I think it's probably 7. I think Years is 8, and now Time of Trouble is 9. All of it was available free at Yada Yahowah. And I think many of you know that I went to the Yada Yahowah site, and the Contact Me, a site that was built by a good friend of mine, Joe Page. And I answered every email, most of them within hours of the time that it was sent. And sometimes I spent the entire day just doing the research and answering people's questions. And my wife now is one of those people who reached out to me in an email, and we exchanged emails on issues related to the Torah once or twice a week for 10 years before we met. I was devoted to even the individual who wanted to know. and I would do my best to help that individual answer their questions. That is no longer the case. I haven't answered a question regarding Prophet of Doom, now Goddamn Religion, in years. I go to the Yada Yahowah, YadaYah.com website for emails, the email part of it, maybe once every 6 months. And the reason is that the mission's the same, it's just the means to carry it out have changed. I want you to have an appreciation, because this is, listen, when the two greatest men who ever lived failed at a job that we cannot fail at, Moshe and then Dode, you need to have, if you're part of the covenant family, you need to have an appreciation of what I'm up against. And if you're listening and you're not yet part of the covenant family, you need to know why I'm not going to hold your hand and walk you through and answer your questions. Or even if you're part of the covenant and you're using our social media account as a way to spark debate, why I don't respond or why I get frustrated under those circumstances. When I was doing what I had done for 23 years, which was to study Yahweh's testimony, write these profoundly interesting, unique translations. Nothing ever existed like them, I mean, even remotely. Creating the new style and in the process deducing upwards of 10,000 unheralded insights. No one had ever seen that many unique aspects of God's nature and his offering previously. During that time, it is about 99% filling my soul with energy, with knowledge, with understanding, with teaching from Yahweh, and then my mind expanding with all of these profound insights and the joy of sharing them. This is an exceedingly positive, uplifting, nurturing, wonderful experience of growth. And we had the opportunity to learn as we grew, that I became an exemplar, just like Dode and Moshe became exemplars along the way. The more you spend time with Yahweh and listen to him and think about what he has to say, the more you can offer, the more you can refine the message. And it was, one of the things that was the most interesting part of that is that in some 10,000 profoundly unique and important insights, 95% of them were right the first time that I perceived them. And about 5% of them, I learned more along the way, saw things that no one had ever previously considered, and refined them as we progressed, because there were insights that we hadn't seen before. And I would tell you that over the last 6 months, that refinement has reached a pace that is, akin to Niagara Falls versus a sprinkler head in your lawn. That's where we are. All of these things are very positive. We had a rebellion that was part of our group back in November of last year, almost a year ago. And it was cathartic when it first happened. I'm pretty hard to move out of my position. I realized that Yahweh chose me because I'm stubborn and I'm resilient and I'm steadfast. And, I may have lots of irritating qualities, like I don't suffer fools well. And I may have a short fuse. I have lots of irritating qualities. But the fact is, I'm really good at sticking and being loyal. I'm not going to abandon Yahweh. I'm not going to abandon this mission. I'm going to get it done. I don't give a crap what anybody has to say. You challenge me on X and I'm right back in your face immediately. So when this happened, first Yahweh said, just ignore it. We have a job to do. And now that that's happened, this is what I wanted to have happen. And I'm going to explain to you what I want you to do now that it has happened, because I need you to do something that you haven't done before. I need you to be the voice of those books. I need you to get cameras and lights and microphones. And I want you to start the blog. I want you to change the symbol from the lion to a menorah. And I want you to begin the Yahowah blog. I want you to be the voice of those books. My voice to my people now. Oh my. I had no idea at the time what that was going to cost. Yahowah did. And there's a reason why Yahowah waited till we had very little time left to make that transition. Well, I enjoy doing these programs for you. This is a unique opportunity to make what I have learned come alive in the spoken word, where you can see into my eyes and know what it is that I actually think about what I'm saying. You can't fake it in a live stream. And that's all we ever do is live streams. And I was always reluctant up to the point where Yahowah said, this is what I want you to do. And, you know, I have a real simple relationship with Yahowah. Our relationship's not complicated at all. He has a lot to say. I listen to him. I learn from him, and I share what I learned from him. And if he engages to interrupt me learning from him just by reading and studying his word and contemplating what he has shared through the Torah and prophets, to have a private conversation, then what he requests is what I do. Call me silly, call me shallow. We never debate it. We don't have an argument over it. I never say, but God, what about, can we? No, it's just, he says, this is what I want. He's very matter of fact. And sometimes he's a little bit sarcastic even. It's his style, and I don't blame him for it. In fact, I see the humor in it. But when he says, this is what I want you to do, I just simply say, okay, that's what we're going to do. I just had no idea what that was going to take. Well, I genuinely enjoy this process of sharing with you, because I have learned now that the spoken word is actually far more powerful than the written word. Much. I had avoided it up to this point because, for the most part, Yahowah had avoided it. Yahowah only communicated through the written word. Yeah, occasionally he'd make an exception when he spoke to the children of Yisra'el directly, and they hated it. And, occasionally it was Moshe speaking to the children of Yisra'el, but Yahowah was using his mouth to do that. But everything got written down exactly as it was stated, exactly at that moment. So it was communicated to us in writing. And I saw the great value of the written record. You can read faster than I can speak. You can process information at your own pace when you're reading. You can go to the material, which is available free at yadayah.com, at your leisure, at your pleasure, and you can stop at any moment, and you can copy and paste what you read into a search engine to validate whether or not what I'm telling you is accurate. What a marvelous way to teach, to instruct, to share. And as we got this enormous number of books, one of the things that I stopped doing is I stopped being the private tutor. I'm no longer a private tutor. If you were to have written me during that time, I'll say, please read the books. The answer you're seeking is in the books. And I stopped being a private tutor. Did Moshe or Dode ever serve as a private tutor?
No.
No. So I'm in good company giving up the role of private tutor.
I don't have a problem with it.
Obviously, God doesn't, because he didn't use either of those to be private tutors, did he?
Nope.
No. In fact, do we have any evidence that Yashayah or Yirmiyah were private tutors?
No, nobody was listening to them either.
No. They wrote down their message for the entire community and forevermore, for all people to read it. So it's there. You want to question what they have to say, read it. It's there for you to read. I love the written word for that point of view. But the written word doesn't have passion. And the written word lacks a sense of, well, it gains in credibility in that you can look up everything and verify it. It lacks the credibility, the spontaneity provide. It's one thing for me to have spent 5 hours to have written a phrase and come up with conclusions and then share them with you after having been able to validate it, have fact checkers and the like. It's another thing to be able to look at you like I am now and say all of this contemporaneously, extemporaneously. You got to know it. You got to understand it. You have to be committed to it. To go through something this different than what everyone has been led to believe. To be in this unique a position, recognizing that you're speaking for the creator of the universe, to his people about something he is exceedingly desirous of having accomplished in a very short period of time. And so you need to be right. You need to be concise. You need to be clear. You need to be compelling. And that in a live stream without any edits, without any notes, tough thing to do. And yet, while I'm passionate about doing it, I will tell you that at the end of a program like this, where we've spent an hour doing these kinds of things, and I've poured my soul into it because I care so deeply for Yahweh and his beloved son Dode and for his people, and I realize that so few are listening, yeah, you can ring me out. I've given what I have to give. And if I do it 2 times a day, by the end of that day, I'm almost too tired to fall into bed. And if I do it a 3rd time, you almost have to scrape me off the floor because we're pouring everything we have into this. Now, combine that with the ultimate drain. There is nothing more discouraging, deflating, tank emptying than being on social media. I did not want to do it. God asked me to change the way that we were carrying out the mission. Mission's identical. And we did it exactly as he had asked for 23 years. And then one moment to the next, he made it clear that he was supportive of the rift that we had, where the social media manager, the publisher, and the webmaster all left in a tizzy fit. And it was all because God wanted to do it differently. He didn't want those people part of it, and he wanted to do it differently. And he laid on a layer of responsibility, a burden, genuine burden. He says, now I want you to do it this way. And so for those of you who are in the covenant family, you have to, you don't know, nobody has to have anything. I want you to have an appreciation for how extraordinarily difficult what Yahweh asked me to do actually is, with this responsibility for interacting on social media, to go to X, which is combat zone, to actually have to tell Israel that Netanyahu is being played by Trump and being played by the Muslims such that he is destroying Israel. There is no one that wants to hear that. That there is no Hashem, there is no Adonai, that Judaism is counterproductive to Jews. Nobody wants to hear that. That 1/3 of Jews are going to die over the next 8 years because they're not listening to Yahweh. The Jews are currently estranged from Yahweh, and he is not hearing any of their prayers, and he is not protecting them. They don't want to hear that. That there was no Jesus, and that Muhammad was a complete fraud. People don't want to hear that. People love their conspiracies, and when you poke holes in all of them, they don't want to hear that. Our target audience is 1 in a million. Our foes are 999,999 out of a million. Pretty difficult to have an affinity there. You can't be popular. You can't break through. And yet you have to battle every step of the way. Now, what this means is that I realize that that's the battle on Facebook and X, particularly on X. But on Facebook, what I want on Facebook, on our page on Facebook, the Craig Wynn page on Facebook, is I want you to listen, to learn, to contemplate what is being said, to disseminate that information, and to the extent that you can, to support me in this outreach. I'm not there to debate. I'm no longer there as the answer man that's going to provide an answer to any single individual. Simply looking for support. That has to be a place that I can go and share with the family what we have learned, what we need to disseminate as people, so that we go out from there and we convey that to a world, so that that ripple is magnified. That's the purpose of that page. The purpose on X is to expose Yahweh to a world that has no clue who he is, particularly to Yisraelites, so they have some idea as to what's coming. So that when it happens, they'll have this inkling, yes, this guy constantly hammered this to us, that there was no such thing as a Palestinian, that our enemy was Islam, not Hamas, that we were doing ourselves a disservice to not speak Yahweh's name, that God was not listening to us, that we were isolated, that we should not trust our IDF, that our politicians were letting us down, that the rabbis were counterproductive. There was a guy saying all of that, and now it's obvious. What else did he have to say? That is my job there, to constantly harbor that message, to convey that message. And I expect that when I do so, that there will be lots of very, very vicious attacks, and there are. And I'm human. They do not come at such that you can just simply, because it is a medium where every interaction is recorded, and therefore you need to confront them. And it is irritating, and it's a drain, and I need more support there. But you know where we need the most support? Is YouTube. You know, we have a wonderful covenant member that has, through all manner of difficult times, Stephen, has managed the Yada Yahowah account, and I love him for it. And value the fact that when we were told that we had to take a different approach, he was right there saying, I'm with you. What do you want me to do? And he has done it. And I appreciate him for it. And we have Charles that has the Shamar Emeth site that it's rich with content and has been wonderfully supportive. I opened a couple of more sites just to make certain that we had the Facebook pages and channels. Their channels, their pages on Facebook and YouTube, their channels, to convey this message directly. And most recently, Kevin, who is, one of the most extraordinary people that are part of this family. Kevin has taken it over. And it's, in a matter of weeks, it's more than 100-fold what it was. Way more than 100-fold what it was. This is an example of somebody saying, I'm going to do this. I mean, this was a guy that was already spending hours on the phone and supporting Leah with her music videos, her signs, and her everything she was trying to accomplish to convey this message. He was already spending hours creating with a team the shorts that you see, which are so important and so impactful for our message. He was already somebody that was working with Richard here that is behind the scenes on StreamYard, making sure that everything goes well and encouraging and supporting and telling us, hey, we've got a problem here. You need to deal with this. He's always there for us. He's the guy that is so many positive statements on these channels, and yet he took on the responsibility. And look what happened.
I thought I was going to stay home and be witty on Twitter.
He was
as
witty.
Much as I hated
He's
social
witty.
media.
I know he is witty. The nice thing about Kevin is that Kevin's got attitude.
Oh, I love the attitude.
And I think the thing that makes it work on social media is having snark. That's the one thing I thought that I added to that. I had a unique personality. It was kind of like Eliah's personality. I got snark, and snark should work. There's lots of just quippy, interesting things that are said, and Kevin's got that. And so he is the perfect person to do that. I asked him, I made a mistake the other day, and I asked him, so what can I do to support what you're accomplishing? He says, well, you ought to chime in and contribute, and with your comments. And of course, that was exactly what I didn't want to hear, because of the fact that, oh my God, my time, half my day is already consumed with communicating on social media, and he doesn't need me, because of the fact is he's in some ways better than me. He's really good at engaging in this way. He knows when not to engage and just bump your block band or whatever they do, and when he can engage in a way that gets people's attention. So he's perfect. Doesn't need me to do that. That's my take anyway. I think it's yours too.
Yep.
Yeah, he's really good at it.
He's better at it than I am. It takes me much longer to form the whole sentences and put it all together.
Yeah, I've read some of your letters and responses, and Rich is very methodical and such that when you read it, you say, wow, it's kind of like Roger on our Facebook site.
Oh, Roger's a wonderful writer.
Oh my God, what a great wordsmith. I mean, the man has so much talent. We need to figure out a way that we get Roger on one of these channels, or are assigned to, like, we need to be effective on Instagram. That is where Charlie Kirk, for example, his mainstay was Instagram. I think 10 million followers on Instagram. And then secondarily on other places. He didn't even list what he did on X or Facebook. They weren't even meaningful to him. But Instagram, TikTok, and then YouTube. So a guy like Roger, who has a gift with words. I mean, he is a really, really good writer. Or a guy like Matt Fun with Cats.
Oh, Matt's awesome.
I mean, there's nobody with a better personality.
Nope.
They just don't come any better. He is so devoted to the cause.
Got the right attitude.
Right attitude. And he knows his material. You can tell when somebody writes something that's not true, he's right on it.
Yep.
He'd be perfect for take over Rumble. You be Mr. Rumble. Stir it up.
Yeah.
Draw attention to it. And that's what we need. We need a Roger to go to an Instagram. We have a really wonderful covenant person, a woman that is managing TikTok. But I don't know, and so I may be speaking out of school here. She posts the shorts on TikTok. I don't know if she has this interactive gift of gab that some of these other people have that can be so effective. We have a guy that both I love and he drives me crazy. Robert is his name. And the reason I love Robert is he is intellectual. You can always tell the wheels are turning.
Yep.
He's very, very well informed. And he is always trying to add to the content. And I love him because a third of the things he posts are, wow, that was insightful. He posted something where Israel bombed Qatar and the world was against them. And he pointed out, how is that any different than when the United States went into Pakistan to get bin Laden?
Yeah.
And you just read this, oh, that's truthful. And then I saw a week after he told me that, and I'm thinking things, telling him, that's really insightful and it's true. Netanyahu went on the air a couple of days ago and made the same. Really good stuff. But then there's this tendency occasionally to go in and cite an AI search engine, which AI is not intelligent.
No.
They're wrong more than they're right. They are programmed with a bias. And particularly when you're communicating things as controversial as we are, AI is not a help. They are absolutely part of the problem. That's why I've been posting things to help people understand the programming bias of AI. And, like me to say that 90% of those that lived in Athens were slaves. And, he goes to AI and said, no, it's 30%. And yet what I have to do then is for credibility's sake, now I've got to go spend 5 or 6 hours redoing the research that I came up with for the 90%, which he's absolutely capable of doing because he's a really smart guy and he knows how to do research, which was, there's only how many? For an actual census that was done of slaves versus free in Athens, how many censuses were there?
Just one.
Just one. How many contemporary sources are there that actually spoke at the time about the ratio of slaves to free in Athens?
Just the one?
Nope. There were 4.
There's 4.
There were 4.
Oh, that's right.
There were 4. So if you survey those 4 and you consider the one census that was done at the time, you will come to the conclusion that 90% of the inhabitants of Athens were slaves.
Yep.
All of the research by the scholars after that, they don't want to deal with what those 4 sources say, because how do you make a PhD dissertation if you repeat what's already known? It doesn't work as a PhD dissertation. So they all came up with formulas, and they have extrapolated from formulas to say, well, this many people and maybe that many people, and so now if the AI engine looks at the published reports by scholars who are not citing the original sources, they'll come up with 35.
And the scholars already had a bias looking for, we wanted to prove democracy.
That is correct, because that is exactly, all of the scholars had a bias because it's pretty hard to promote democracy when you've got 90% of the population as slaves.
Oops.
And so I went back and I went through and said, now here's the sources, and this is why this research is more valid than the AI report. Now, the problem is that if I did that in the point I was making, then I would have lost the entire point, because what am I supposed to say? Well, I'm going to give you the evidence for this, that, and the other, and let me tell you how the AI will contradict it and why the AI will. You're lost. That's why posting it in the middle of a chat room is not helpful. But because you have the gift, and because there are places that are so controversial and that kind of post can stimulate dialogue, why doesn't Robert go and take over Instagram?
Yeah.
Be great at it. He's intellectual. He's sharp. Go turn that energy into something that will help the cause, that will cause more people to listen to this message. Perfect.
We're looking for thousands.
Right.
We're looking for help.
Robert, go
to
there.
Help us find these thousands.
Go get us on Instagram and take these shorts. We'll give you the access to the library of them, and be the one that engages there. Because if I go there, it drains more out of the tank, and that's not good. And the thing that I have noticed recently is that when I spent 80% of my day in social media, and then 20% of my day doing these blogs, that by the end of the day, I had nothing. And by the end of the week, I had less. And it went on. And after a while, one person becomes like Moshe or like Dode. You can't get them. You can't either get them into the promised land with the right attitude, or you can't protect them in the promised land with the right attitude. You just run out. And I can't run out, because God needs us to stay steadfast in this job. And so what we need is more people who are bright. We need Matt to establish either join our TikTok site. So he's Mr. TikTok,
Yep.
or he is Mr. Instagram, or a Robert to be a Mr. TikTok or an Instagram, and Roger, who is so articulate, to be part of one of those sites. Leah is raising her hand. What does that mean, Leah? You claim everybody. You know.
Leah needs a video editor.
Oh yeah. So yeah, she said Leah needs a video editor. You know, my dear friend Joe, who's been my dear friend for such a long time and is now working on getting the books finally tuned for Amazon, with a wonderfully disciplined, a wonderfully organized man who is devoted to this, Anthony. And so Anthony and Joe are now, after we got our new site up, they're focused on the books. That's why the site is not developing at the pace that we wanted to develop, is the books need to be right. And Joe is the one who is working with Rich and Anthony now get these books ready for Amazon. And we're going to soon have Joe back on the site to make it do all the wonderful things that we wished it to achieve. But, you know, all the way along, we have wonderful people. I was going to say Leah stole Mary. Mary is Joe's beloved wife. And Mary wrote me and said, you know, I have some time. I'd like to do something. I gave Mary, because I really need a video person that goes to X, goes to news feeds, and is clipping videos that would be interesting to talk about. Stupid stuff that Trump says, stupid stuff that Netanyahu says, stupid stuff that Muslims are promoting, stupid stuff that Marxists are promoting, and that they become clips that I can do a show that, like the Shattering Myths, I used to go through all of the news stories, you know, like I read 20 different newspapers a day, and I clipped stories out of them, and then I talked to the stories. Well, it was radio. I could talk to the stories. I read the story and talked about it. Now we need it video, so I need somebody that will clip these videos and send them to me or to Rich so that we can incorporate them into a Yada Yahowah news blog. And so I had Mary she asked, what can I do? And I said, this is what I'd like you to do. And she was, well, I think I can do that. And then Leah offered her a better job, and she went with Leah's offer, which I'm just having fun here. But, you know, the fact is, I need somebody that's going to do that. We need somebody in the covenant family to step up and say, I can do that job.
Yep.
And then, so there's just so many things that need to be done. And in this case, we can't be like Moshe was. We can't be like Dode was.
Can't fall apart.
Right? We can't leave the guy who is the messenger for Yahweh alone. Now, you might say, so why did Yahweh do that? Why did he leave Moshe essentially alone? Why did he leave Dode essentially alone? Because it wouldn't have made any difference if he had brought in the entire heavenly host. It wouldn't have made a difference. Not then. No one was listening.
Not now.
And, you know, it's true that no one's listening now, but it's about to get so damn bad that your choice is you will either listen to what we say about Yahweh or you're going to die. That's how bad it's going to get. But between now and then, there's a chance where you can get off of this planet alive at the Shabua harvest. And we need to leave this vast reservoir of information available for people to listen to pay attention to while that 3 years that we're gone. We've got a lot to accomplish, and we need your help. And, you know, one of the things that I learned about the covenant, and I learned it through Yahweh's teaching in Numbers 12, where after Yahweh explained to us in Numbers 11 that Dode gave up, that he couldn't get this job done because the audience was too tough. They were too stubborn, unwilling to listen. The audience was Jews. That in Numbers 12, he had his sister who had previously spoken for Yahweh, had been part of the covenant family, and God had to divorce himself from her. He smeared her with leprosy. He said, it's like your father having spit in your face, when she said, well, we too speak for God. And the lesson there was exceedingly profound in terms of what it means for us today. So I'm not going to question Yahowah. Normally I would and say, what in the world were you thinking when you picked me to do this job? I am not qualified for this job. Are you out of your ever-loving mind? I mean, okay,
that's my line, because I'm like, what in the world does Yahweh see in me?
Yeah,
And
well,
I
I
still
said
come down
the
here.
same thing. What in the world are we doing here? This job can't be done, and I'm certainly not qualified to do it. Are you crazy? I won't actually say it that way. Occasionally, I think of it that way. But the fact is that God didn't support Moshe, and he did not support Dowd, and neither of them succeeded. And I'm not up to their level, to their standard. And we only have 8 years left. And we cannot fail. If we fail, the entire earth is destroyed. God does not return. That's what's at stake. There is no remnant of Yisra'el. There is no Shabuah harvest. There is no Teruah gleaning. It does not happen. And the difference is overwhelming as to whether or not we succeed and meet and surpass Yahweh's expectations or fail to meet them, such that we are operating as a family and we are engaged. And one of the things I said that I realized is that the difference is that one time I believed once covenant, always covenant. That's not true. You want to be part of this family? God expects you to be part of this family. He expects you to go to work. You cannot be with God for eternity if you don't want to work. That's what God expects. That's why it was so wonderful to see the man who I had so much respect for in terms of his translations, his research, his mind, James Bowen.
Yeah.
James came back.
I love it, because that was when I started, and James was still on the broadcast, and his website helped me tremendously.
And another person that was so instrumental in those early years that was part of the broadcast was Joe Page.
Yep.
And now Joe Page is back. And this is the kind of thing that you need to be doing at this time to make a difference. Look at my my good friend for all of these years, Kirk Miller. And Kirk didn't just say, I can contribute to the family hour and that's what I'll do. No, Kirk put together a glossary for us to understand the Hebrew language. Kirk came up with a unique way of looking at how the letters fit together to convey things that are positive and negative. And he's always there to support the family. Look at what Leah has done. I mean, particularly now we realize that Leah's an introvert, very much like Yahowah, by the way. Yahowah is also an introvert. I know that's stunning to say, but he is an introvert. There are introverts and there are extroverts. The difference in an introvert is in an extrovert. Are you energized by being around and before a lot of people, or you do prefer small groups? And do you like your time alone, or you prefer to be in the midst of it all the time? I'm an extrovert. I'm actually an extrovert by choice. I was born an introvert. I didn't like being an introvert. So I changed my personality to be an extrovert. Most people say you can't do that, but I did. Leah's an introvert. Therefore, to be part of these programs, to be in the midst of this, to be the person that this vulturous mother goddess cult chooses to assassinate, very difficult for her. But she's doing it, isn't she? She's out there. She's engaged, even though it is so different than what she would prefer. And so I realized that if you want to be part of this covenant family, go to work, engage, Don't give up. Don't get upset that, well, I don't like, Craig's attitude on this, that, or the other thing. Don't give up. Don't go away. Engage. Figure out all the things you can do. I've just listed things that we need done. And if you can contribute, we need you to contribute, because if you're not contributing, you're kidding yourself about being part of this family. Now, I know that everybody isn't going to do as much as I'm doing. Here a guy like Shannon went around on his tour.
Yeah.
And every time that I read something that man writes, I say, oh, boy, he gets it. He really understands. He's on his game. He is a marvelous person to contribute in this way and take over one of, like, a Rumble site, for example. He'd be great at it.
Yeah, we need people to help comment.
Well, not just comment,
but direct,
but play a role in administrating these things. And it's like I do these programs, but we put these programs out under names that have no interest to anybody. This is the Twistianity volume 23 or whatever it is, or 24 or 20.
40.
Oh, 40. Okay. I don't even think that's what we're showing. I think we're showing maybe we are showing those. That is not interesting. If you look at the things on YouTube, for example, that get people's attention, they're confrontational. What we're saying is plenty confrontational, but we need to redo the titles such that they appear as a way that gets people's attention, and that everything should be rewritten that way and chopped up that way and served up that way. And the people that really know the covenant and know Yahweh and understand the Moed Mikra and understand our timeline and understand God's passion for his people, you're perfect to do this. Take it and run with it. Let's understand the importance of synergy, of 1 + 1 = 10, not of 2. So that's where we are. That's what I want to talk about. We'll come down and do another program and return to the 89th Mizmor, which Rich had all ready to go, as if I was going to go into it. But I gave him a hint at the beginning of the program that I was going to ask him some questions, and when he wanted to be complimentary of who I am compared to who those other guys were, I said, no, we're not going there with it. The answer is no, I'm not in their league. And yet the conditions and situation hasn't changed. And since they did not succeed and they're better than me, we need support, or we're going to end up with the same result. And we're not going to do that. We are not going to end our time together and have to look at God and say, yeah, we could have done better. But, Roger was a great writer, but he just didn't ever take over a social media account. That Robert, he a very bright guy. He's really adept online, but I couldn't get him off Facebook to take over, a TikTok and to make a tangible difference. And that Matt, nobody has more enthusiasm, but he didn't actually take over one of the social media channels and make a difference. There's somebody of you out there that we know we need video clips of news stories that we can comment on and integrate into a whole nother outreach mechanism, and use what energy I do have and what time I do have to do news stories so that we garner people's attention. That's what we need. That's what we need you to do. We need you to engage. We can't do this alone. We will. I don't want to. I will. But we're better when we're all making a contribution. Everybody is out of their comfort zone. We're all there on the edge. And I'll tell you, when you're out of your comfort zone and you're doing this for Yahweh, and it's really real and raw, man, that's when you grow in your relationship. That's when you grow in your confidence. That's when you realize, I am now making a difference. And I'm challenging you all to do that. There's another woman that just happens to have a gift of snark. Kirk's wife, Sylvia. She can make a real difference We have somebody that really understands the covenant, very good with words, and wants to contribute even more. Mariah,
Yep.
who is
She's
all
the
over
reason
this.
I'm here,
Right,
literally.
right. So she did leverage herself in that regard.
Yep.
So we all need to find our place and be boss man or boss woman of that place and take the responsibility and just go with it. Be the boss man or boss woman of a site that is reaching out to Yahweh, reaching out for Yahweh, to his people and to Goyim. And we have another 20 months that we can still reach out to Goyim, at which point the whole story is going to be Yehud. Join us. Go out of your comfort zone. Make a difference. If you're not doing something that is essential for the covenant family, volunteer and figure out a way. Work through Rich and through Kevin and through Leah to find your niche. I'm going to tell you that I am actually not the right person to reach out to. I'm absorbed. I need you to reach out to Rich, to Kevin, and to Leah, and to find that spot. I appreciate you listening. I don't think this is what you intended to hear when you dialed into this program today, but sometimes we just need to speak from the heart and tell you where we are, where we're at, what we're trying to achieve, and how we're going to get there. And so maybe this is sort of like the last conversation I had with Yahweh when I said, what would you like me to do now in this situation? And he says, okay, young man, now that you asked, this is what I want. So maybe I'm playing the role now of dad and saying, as part of this covenant family, this is what I want from you. I hope you're listening. Thank you very much and have a wonderful rest of your day.